Do you have an appointment?
The name's Bond.
James Bond.
James Bond is an English icon and a product of World War II. Espionage, danger, military expertise, cunning, guile, witty charm. A ladies' man with a honed assassin skill set and even sharper tongue.
What a helpful chap.
From Ian Flemming's novel origins through to his iconic movie legacy and gaming history, his clandestine tales have always been shaken, yet never stirred. But since the tail end of Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig's stints as a tuxedo-clad super spy, the series, and more so character, have been gradually watered down and ultimately smothered to death. With his latest reboot, the franchise can try and restore some of that past fire and roguish charisma, while creating something new, as true now as Moore was to Connery, Dalton was to Moore, and Brosnan onwards. The question is, does a young Bond in a modern world, powered by IO Interactive's Glacier engine, break the ice quite as well as he used to? Now, as I am but one man, I've had to split this look of First Light down into PS5 and Pro, which is this video, and then a PC one to follow shortly after. Also, I did not get review code, so I had to buy my own copies, physical where always possible, at launch, before going 007. And as of note, the disc is pointless. It's nothing more than a digital DRM, as you have to download the game to play it even from that disc code, which, as everyone knows from my channel for long-time watchers, that is not something that I support or agree with. But we'll park that one until the end. Now on PS5 we get two modes, 30fps Quality and 60fps Performance mode, and as I covered last year over on my IGN preview, I suspected, and even showed points in that demo, that clearly highlighted memory limits and throughput bandwidth bottlenecks, and that 60fps was indeed a target for the team even then, and in the final game they achieved it, with some minor cuts. Now of the two modes base PS5 has, it's a genuine conundrum to pick which is best based on the compromises both have, something fixed or at least dramatically improved on the Pro. But the 60fps mode does a great job of maintaining an even and consistent 16 millisecond frame time. Racing through cobbled streets, fighting 20 guards plus, or taking your license to kill to the extreme, it achieves an impressive performance rate and flips the fears following last year's demo on their head. Now where that could seriously struggle to hit 33 or 50 milliseconds, with my assumption of those memory data limited being proven true in the final game here, as we are now 3 times plus faster in the performance mode. We still see memory or code bugs causing some dips, which are a mixture of intended and still related directly or not to memory limits, allocation, buffers, bandwidth or otherwise. Now changes of camera can have held frames to warm up caches and such, or just pure old fashioned data seeks or context switching, but also GPU and even CPU limits with some bouts into the low 50s, highlighting bugs or memory. These can be worse the longer you play. Now it's never terrible, but noticeable in the reveal level. Having played through for a few hours, we see these lows, but restarting the game and playing again, we're mostly locked or at least closer to 60fps with less of these bouts that seem to be context or memory related. So be aware of long runs if your performance does dip, save the game, quit and restart, and that will largely resolve it. In addition, the team have been patching the game since launch and it has improved slightly since the first day I played the game. Now this can also stop crashes, which did happen to me a few times on the base PS5, again possibly memory or render or other bug related to the engine.
About me being here, you'll have to take that up with them.
30 is locked to that target, even better, with no concerns. Even prolonged play is not as prone to issues, but again, a handful of dips can infrequently occur, but they're single frames, you wouldn't really notice them. So hats off to the team for achieving such a consistent level and a genuine 30 and 60 FPS mode, rather than mere targets, which can be more common than I'd like this generation. Sadly though, input latency is a big cost for the improved image quality of quality mode. Far more sluggish controls with an approximate trade-off to 248 millisecond median latency feels very heavy compared to performance mode. It's still high, 163 milliseconds, which is some 35% faster, which feels much more responsive and snappy to play in combat, driving and certainly shooting, and as such this mode remains my recommended choice for PS5 players. Even though IQ, covered later, is a big cost for it, I would prefer it to also be around 100 or even sub 100 milliseconds. It is still much better than that quality mode. Now, PS5 Pro has a single 60 FPS mode using PSSR2, and that is the promised nirvana of best of both, with superior IQ and even better performance, with the extended memory-related issues seeming less likely to occur here. Now, some mild drops can still happen, but overall it's a great increase over the base version, removing the need to choose, so mission accomplished on that score, making performance concerns a non-issue largely on both consoles, but Pro is better in all areas than the PS5 in both of its modes, including image quality and performance.
I think you got the point.
Now, the consoles differ most with that image quality level more than FX, with only minor cuts to shadow resolution and filtering, base resolution, texture filtering, and Pro is better than PS5's Quality mode, but PSSR2 is a huge reason alongside resolution and FSR3 core weaknesses. All target a 4K upscale with PS5 Pro and Quality mode able to render at an approximate 1440p high to 4K with a low of around 1152p on PS5, and I could only get a low of around 1080p on Pro with even fast motion counted out at 4K. Now, PSSR2 is superb in creating a stable, sharp and coherent image at almost all times. Aside from minor ghosting, performance on PS5 is much worse, seemingly topping out at 1080p and hitting a floor of 1280 by 720. But most counts tend to come in around that 900p upscaled, again back to 4K at all times. But the cost is overall a much more unstable image. Specular shimmer, thin geometry and AO, RTGI fizzles across many surfaces, volumetrics, shadows, grass, everything breaks down far more often, making the cost for frame time quite obvious, with Pro often looking like a higher end PC version in comparison and significantly more stable with the RTGI and other effects in the game overall. You can see zoomed in here to help the image quality issues I'm talking about, the fizzle on the back of his head as the camera moves. Look at the noise on all the edges of the geometry, the specular reflections, the glass, the way the GI light and AO is shimmering and bobbing around, and everything looks incredibly jittery and unstable in motion. And this is amplified by heavy action sequence, and even motion blur doesn't mask it out. And in actual fact, some of the other options, such as the chromatic aberration and film grain, can make some of these issues worse on FSR3. Zooming in on this fast action section with the PS5's Performance mode versus the PlayStation 5 Pro's PSSR2, the image quality is soft, unstable and noisy. The rear window frame, the glass edges, the trees and the depth of field all break down and fizzle under motion, even slowed down with motion blur. It's very inconsistent frame to frame, with the Pro's PSSR2 offering a sharper textures, more stable edges, cleaner depth of field, and ultimately an image that looks far closer to a 4K output than on base PS5. Even stationary shots such as MI5's HQ here. Zooming in, FSR3 struggles to maintain a stable image on edges, specular textures on the wall, edges of columns, glass and GI and AO, causing moire patterns, that same fizzle and jittering on most areas, including hair, walls and shadows. Quality mode is better but still very noisy, with PSSR2 again solving all these and offering a sharper, cleaner image on hair, Moneypenny's face, GI and AO. Only the low shadow map and filtering remains, and this means PSSR2 is making drastic improvements because the game relies on sub-pixel sampled ray traced effects, high contrast image, and PSSR2 is doing much of the heavy lifting in denoising all of it far better than FSR3, which struggles in most areas in both modes, being significantly worse. Even panning across this room, the quality mode does not achieve the same clarity and stability, falling far short of the PS5 Pro's superior image detail and coherency. Visually, both modes offer near feature parity, textures and model quality, level of detail, NPC count, even the planar reflection proxy quality, largely half resolution rendering, are a match across PS5 and PS5 Pro, as is the game's dynamic ray trace GI, which offers full dynamic GI radiosity bounce and occlusion. It uses a software ray tracer that calculates the light bounce from sun or moon, the diffuse surface colour and local bounce, and then falls back to sign distance fields further away. It operates within screen space, not world space, including ambient occlusion, and it does offer up great outdoor and interior lighting. Characters receive surface albedo colour, and self-occlusion is good indoor and out. The The screen space nature of the effect though can stand out when occluded by Bond or other objects, leaving obvious halos around heads as AO draws out or in as it moves. Reflections on oblique surfaces or non-mirror materials mix projected cube maps with SSR, which fades out based on the edge of frustum or depth buffer samples. Now it does improve image detail and surface accuracy, but both effects can be noisy sometimes due to the sparse sampling they use. As noted, FSR3 is poor at blending and denoising compared to PSSR2. Planar reflections remain a strong point, no ray tracing, but the resolution and reduced geometry of them can be a letdown by resolution and AA, again with performance mode being the most impacted. The reflections, like Hitman, run at a lower resolution of the main game render and lower quality, so in some areas they can become very noisy, blocky, and do not upscale very well.
I have to warn you, I'm pretty good.
No one chats up my girlfriend.
Physics continue to be great. Characters use inverse kinematics, objects break dynamically, cloth billows and wraps around, cars slide and crumple, hangars explode, objects bounce and collide, but characters are the strong point throughout. In combat they move well, as does Bond. All use contextual animation with hands reaching out as you walk past desks or walls. Not new, even the Getaway on PS2 had this feature, but here it resembles Naughty Dog's strides in animation with the Uncharted games and certainly The Last of Us 1 and 2, with motion matching, which makes its way into this game, offering up a dynamic set of animation routines that can be dynamically loaded, stitched together and synced at runtime, offering up a very Naughty Dog Insomniac-like combat system, which is superb and weighty. Bond can evade, parry, grab, Muay enemies with a dynamic takedown, fancy disarms, foot fondling, gun action and more, with the camera swinging in and around to get the best view of a sunken knee or knockout blow. Equally true for the takedowns. Now animation is certainly a huge increase for the team, which was good in Hitman, but here they have really excelled with far more fluid, weighted and tighter animation routines, which makes combat very satisfying. Some issues can occur with timing, sync points and warping, but this was also true to a much lesser degree in The Last of Us Part 2. Crowds continue to be a big plus for the team, and here Bond is rarely on his own, with huge chess championing crowds, guard swamped rooms, nightclub ravers and shipwreck markets. All these NPCs, car chases and plane flights highlight that data streaming has been improved, and as noted in my preview, still remains an area for the team to refine in the Glacier engine. It is doing a great deal, but it can be the single biggest cause of dips, and even 1 second long or more pauses on lower hardware. Another is long load times. As the data, physics, state models and more are reset, we can see reloads or fresh loads can be 10 to 20 seconds even on PS5 and much slower on weaker hardware, such as the Steam Deck. Cutscenes and character models are great, as is hair. Cropped into black bars, it helps resolution counts, but emphasises the cinematic aims. I also appreciate that they align to 30 or 60 depending on mode chosen. Skin, faces, eyes, cloth and hair all have reached a level much closer to Sony first party or other tech-strong teams such as Remedy, Capcom or id Tech & Co. The in-game models are not as well lit, animated or framed, but they still look very good, as does the game's art and materials, which presents superbly right from the camera iris reveal of the opening sequence, the Morris Binder Muse opening credits, complete with David Arnold and Alana Del Rey theme song. It looks, feels and delivers an exquisite Bond universe complete with stunning globe-trotting locales and pretty people. Well, mostly. The only letdown is the game's pop-in and image stability, with base PS5 suffering with lots of sub-pixel noise from specular reflection, AO, hair and more. Again, FSR3 has been built into the game's engine. Even on PC, you cannot easily swap DLLs to FSR4, which means Nvidia and PS5 Pro players get a far superior image, more so than should be the case. Quality mode on PS5 is better, offering sharper textures, cleaner resolve, better shadows and lighting accuracy. However, that cost to input latency and frame time is too big, in my opinion, to make the trade-off a worthy one. But check out my PC review for more on this subject. Suffice to say that the sharp-dressed assassin is not as sharp on the PS5 and certainly those Xbox consoles.
Why not just shoot him and be done? Why the mess?
Well, clearly they were trying to make a point.
Rebooting Bond is commonplace, from his early 1950s origins through the iconic 60s movies style, 70s tongue-in-cheek, 80s anger and 90s debonair decline, culminating in the 2010s emo-fueled brick-born Bond. This latest ticks the same current trend of young, snarky, cocksure retelling we've almost come to expect. The story is not original, surprising, or particularly well written, but it doesn't have to be. It managed to feel more like a Bond film than the last few entries from the cinematic avenue. Even the facial scar from the books is included. He has a similar Maul level style quip heavy approach and is certainly not lacking in self-confidence. He hits the tropes you would expect, including Q gadgets, and obviously avoids the flirting and sexual style made famous with Connery and Moore. And as a game first and foremost, in my opinion, that's for the best. The tutorial is well done, but far too long. The connection it tries to build falls flat, in my opinion, but I did enjoy the opening level and how he starts his journey, even though it was far more Netflix than Pinewood. The game heavily focuses on dynamism and stealth, with the ability to flip-flop from violent action back into spy-like stealth, which is a good idea, carried over from Hitman like many things, but ruined by poor AI and visibility cones, using obvious state models, and very little self-preservation. The puzzle-based progression of some levels is varied, but often using a gadget or fist negates the need for subterfuge, which is a shame. Animation is excellent but can be buggy with clear timing issues or motion matching, clunky moments in play for far too many scripted moments that can work 1 minute and then seem awkward the next. Also, some of the best sections are not playable or are off the sticks, which reduces the engagement in some potentially superb sequences. The team clearly played and loved the Uncharted games, specifically Uncharted 3 and 4 being key sources of inspiration. The set pieces and mix of level styles and change of pace is a great idea, and some work better than others, but it never feels quite as polished as those games in execution or extravagance, but they are a smaller studio, and pacing is superior here compared to Uncharted 4.
You have less than 1% chance of success. Now stand down.
I'll take those odds.
Bond.
In the end, First Light is a competent, well-made and enjoyable game that is a great start for IO to leave the Hitman franchise behind and build up into the Bond universe. The in-house Glacier engine certainly has the flair, with the noted highlights also including their new fog volumes utilising Raymarch voxels that sample light, shadow whilst casting their own. They add purpose and presence in the game over the now standard but largely passive clouds. Extending the engine more with hair strands and excellent character model and animation is both impressive and, as I often say, should be more prevalent than homogenized engine tech. I hope the game's 3 million and growing sales secure them a bigger budget and timescale to push on for the next entry, and possibly their Thunderball or Russia with Love moment. As a technical showcase, it presents well, and a level I think will become more standard in the AAA space. The lack of real disc code does hit hard though, and I mark them down a notch for that. The online play also seems tacked on, and I'm happy at least that you can choose to remain offline, once you've installed it anyway. So Bond is back, but whether he remains is still up for debate, but this is certainly his best pixel-based offering since Nightfire. GoldenEye remains safe for now. And that's it for another deep dive into game technology, James Bond, and all things stealth and tuxedo related. Remember, I am self-funded and independent, and if you watch this all the way to the end, I really appreciate it, and you can help by subscribing, first and foremost, liking, sharing this video where appropriate, reading more over on my website, and if you like what I do with early access to this and exclusive access to other stuff, you can also help me for a few pounds or dollars on my Patreon. Anyway, I am out, but I'll catch you very soon on the next one.
We got company coming. A lot of it.
I'll go and have a word then.
Busy. I'll go get the land room.